Hello, I'm Kim LYERLY, and I'm going to present on the CDF AADV satellite session on the Global Pediatric Neuro-Oncology Network proposal. This was a special session that was organized with CDDF at the AAADV meeting in Washington, D.C. that was held virtually in 2021. You can see we had a robust agenda with speakers from around the world, really with the focus on understanding the opportunities and challenges in pediatric neuro-oncology from a global perspective. We started out with a description of the potential challenges for pediatric neuro-oncology and had some thoughtful comments about strategies that perhaps could address this and develop a framework for improving availability and access to care. As you know, pediatric neuro-oncology is a significant global problem around the world. More than 400,000 children are estimated to develop cancer every year. And pediatric brain tumors are the most common solid tumors and the leading cause of cancer-related deaths among children between the age of 0 to 14. Dr. Roger Packer from the US did a great job in describing the current understanding of pediatric neuro-oncology subtypes. And you can see from this pie chart the ability to clinically define the many different subtypes of solid tumors associated with the central nervous system. This has led to a very sophisticated characterization of the different forms of pediatric brain tumors. In this example, there is a graphical summary of the 12 different subtypes of medulloblastoma, often defined by characteristic genomic and genetic changes, all of which have a unique pattern of disease and the opportunity for therapeutic intervention defined by these molecular changes. This sophisticated characterization of pediatric tumors has led to a challenge in which the correct therapeutic intervention for the correct molecular subtype has to be matched. And this is matched using a framework of clinical trials, particularly active in the United States, but also globally. And these clinical trials networks are supported by the National Cancer Institute, some institutions such as St. Jude's, as well as industry-sponsored trials, either at single sites or at multiple sites. In addition, organizations supported by the NCI or other organizations have been developed to help organize and support study and ongoing research into these molecular subtypes of brain tumors. But as we pointed out, these brain tumors affect children around the world. And in fact, the molecular characterization requires that many of these studies to include patients from all over the world to really achieve their scientific endpoints and accrue sufficient numbers of patients to make meaningful observations. The outcome of all of this work at present has been good for the US and for most high-income countries. The relative 5-year survival for malignant brain tumors is over 75%. And children have access to comprehensive care at academic centers, state-of-the-art chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, as well as support for themselves and their families. And again, we're quite pleased that the outcome for these children can be as positive as it is, and certainly hope to continue to improve that. The problem, of course, is the fact that if we take a global view and to think of this situation as global citizens, we find that 20% of the children in high-income countries have a nearly 80% survival rate, as we point out. But 80% of the children affected by these disorders live in low-income or lower middle-income countries in which they have a 20% cancer survival rate. And strikingly, the probability of survival for children with cancer depends greatly on the socioeconomic background of the family and the underlying health system of the country in which they were born. So certainly this results from a variety of challenges, including the ability to make a diagnosis for a pediatric brain tumor, again, in an early stage, having access to the types of imaging that are necessary to make a diagnosis, but also even for fundamental therapeutics such as chemotherapy, as illustrated here, attempts to provide access to fundamental chemotherapy products in parts of Africa have been attempted and have certainly made an impact. Also, there's inequity in access to basic radiotherapy services. And in this global map, you can see the high-income countries with high access to state-of-the-art radiotherapy equipment, particularly in North America and in Europe. But there is significant deficiencies in access in many parts of the world, including Southeast Asia and Africa. So overall, these challenges have led to recognition and a call to address this. The WHO's Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer proposes to achieve at least a 60% survival rate for all children with cancer by the year 2030, which would represent the doubling of the global cure rate and hopefully saving an additional 1 million lives. Well, what are other strategies that could be employed to achieve this goal? Well, one of the things we know and recognize, particularly in this conference, is the power of collaborative efforts, particularly involving the pharmaceutical industry. And at this conference, we had a representation from Chitkala Kalidas from Bayer, who provided a quick summary of the global perspective from a multinational pharmaceutical company, Bayer. Their ideas were to participate in solution finding, which would really represent opportunities to provide a sustainable model to address pediatric drug development needs from their perspective, including the regulatory requirements. They felt some of these solutions would provide a pre-competitive, multi-stakeholder collaborative initiative to support capacity building, and this would allow the treatment of vulnerable populations with high unmet medical needs. And they felt that these types of efforts were attractive as they advanced the corporate sustainability goals to reduce disparities in access to quality cancer care. For that reason, they spent a lot of time thinking about the role of pediatric clinical research as a critical component of global oncology drug development. They knew that and addressed the fact that oncology trials allow access to innovative therapies. However, there are ethical challenges, recruitment challenges, and infrastructure challenges for pediatric clinical trials. Nonetheless, the strategies proposed involving the highly developed and complex pediatric clinical trials networks create an opportunity to leverage this expertise and experience into something perhaps with a global footprint. Indeed, Dr. Kalidas noted that pharmaceutical companies face common challenges, including recruiting pediatric patients onto oncology trials, not only to develop the evidence to use these products to meet certain regulatory requirements, And one of the things that would be attractive would be to find ways in which a global footprint, particularly providing access to those children in lower and middle income countries, would have access to these therapeutics. So the Bayer corporate sustainability goals were aligned with this effort, and also their specific interest in reducing disparities in access to quality care. You can see from this slide their goals in bringing economic growth and sustainability, which they feel go hand in hand. They feel it contributes to the sustainability development goals of the United Nations, and again, feel that specific focus on pediatric neuro-oncology that can contribute not only to their goals, but to the similar goals of international and large pharma and biotech. So we began to reduce the opportunity to what could be done today. One of the things to leverage was the efforts invested into by the U.S. National Institutes of Health. One of them was a telehealth or telesynergy solution that allows essentially a virtual tumor board to be developed across a variety of platforms. This would allow a review of radiographs and the microscopic images, allowing a sense that you are in the same room talking about a patient at a tumor board. And as you can imagine, these first generation telesynergy platforms developed about 10 years ago were hardwired using cable devices and the first and second generation video conferencing equipment that would allow these types of same room experiences of tumor boards. These slides show these early generation techniques in which video conferencing, X-rays, and microscopic images could be shared across sites and creating the ability to have a discussion about best practices for the treatment of an individual. Currently, we know that there have been a number of developments in video conferencing, such as the types of tools we're using today, but still the telesynergy solutions developed by the NIH and the NCI did have some advanced technologies that allowed the sharing of microscopic images and the control of these digital microscopic images to allow pathologists from around the world to agree on review of slides, again, very, very important, as well as the sophisticated teleradiology techniques that are widely used and adopted today. And currently, these types of solutions are being developed on a cloud-based and Wi-Fi enabled set of technologies that would allow relatively easy access for individual clinics and sites around the world to coordinate the types of tumor boards that would be necessary to allow for the discussion and potential therapeutic planning of pediatric neuro-oncology patients. So we're quite excited about the support from the National Institutes of Health and the NCI to continue to develop this electronic platform for an electronic tumor board for the pediatric neuro-oncology patients. We think this would provide a springboard for future opportunities to coordinate efforts to address the WHO goals of achieving a reduction in mortality from all cancers, but potentially pediatric brain tumors. We hope to continue to understand the current status of brain tumor patients from around the world, develop the appropriate organizational tools that allow us to continue to dialogue and create partnerships and advance a network that would build capacity around the world as these discussions and expertise are brought into the fold. And we'll continue to have these discussions, hopefully with other organizations, including the biopharma and government sponsors necessary to make this a success. Thank you very much.